And that scene of arriving at the house and walking towards the door, it was perfect. It was so perfect, that the quietness of the outside, that's that mood of, that inside these walls, within those walls, there's life and there's loneliness. All right, hey everyone, it is 8:30 p.m. on May 13th, 2025. I would like to talk with you about the Black Mirror. I finished watching the last season, I think season 7, the most recent. I really loved this most recent season, and especially the episode I'd like to talk with you about here is the final episode, Callister, USS Callister, Into Infinity. It was very surprising because suddenly at the end of the season, you're watching all the episodes that are independent. You can watch any of them in any order. Suddenly you get this very special episode that continues an episode from season 4. So there was a story, a world that we were introduced to, a bunch of characters in season 4. I don't remember what episode exactly, but 3 years later, or some years later, you go back, we revisit, and it's the rest of that story. So for that reason, it was very, very interesting, very fun. After watching this recent episode, this last one, I went back and rewatched the earlier part, the first part of the story, and then came back and rewatched the second part. And the story is about, for me, about creation, ethics, cloning, some sci-fi elements that get tangled up with ethical questions. It was about loneliness to a great extent, the loneliness of a creator. It was about social status, social relationships, and the effect of society on loneliness. Sometimes there's this unspoken, coordinated action on the side of a group, on the side of a collective, a group to exclude, without really speaking about it. They all decide to not include one person, and the reason why they don't include that person is sometimes it's nothing but the fact that the person is already lonely. I remember reading a paper about this on the self-reinforcing cyclical effect of loneliness and social isolation, that if people detect that, they are more likely to avoid the person who they perceive to be alone, which really shows the cruelty of human nature. For maybe not everybody, but the people, we tend to be like that. Again, not to generalize to all situations and all people, but many of us, in many situations, many circumstances, scenarios, we tend to behave like this because of fear, maybe because of the status quo, maybe because we don't want to ourselves be ostracized, be excluded. Okay, the scene at the end, towards the end, not at the end, but there's a garage scene. And I would ask you not to listen to the rest of my video if you haven't watched the episode. Go watch that episode and maybe come back, or later again if you have a chance to listen to my rambling. There's a garage scene with Robert Daly. Robert Daly is the creator, is the genius behind a video game. He became the CTO of the company, of the video game company, and he gets exploited by the CEO, by the business mind of the company. The Robert Daly that we see at that garage scene is not Daly himself, the original Daly. It is a clone of Robert Daly. It is the clone that was decided to be put there at the heart of this game universe. In the beginning, at the inception of their business venture, the creative / business venture, they decided, the two of them, the CEO and Robert Daly, I'm trying to remember the CEO's name, to rapidly grow the universe of the game. They clone and they put that clone of Robert Daly at the heart of the universe, at the center, so he keeps creating, designing, adding planets and parts of the world, that world. So by the time that our hero, the heroine of our story, meets Robert Daly in that garage, it's been about 500 years that he's been in his own timeline. He's been living there and creating there. But the cloned world, it's not just his body, his mind and body, but it's his home. And I was so moved by that scene of, she arrives there, she descends, she lands, and it's nighttime. And it's a quiet street, suburban, it's a suburban image. And there's a spray watering the grass and quiet. But you get this feeling of this is someone's home. It's not just this is house, a building. Because you have seen that. We have seen that scene. We have seen the image of the home. We've been there before in the story. Now it's very different. Now it's nighttime, quiet. There's this calm mood. And the music is so beautiful. It's so fitting. The music is that there's the calm of a home, like arriving at someone's home. And they might be there. There is this association between certain lonely characters and how they are based in a home. How the home becomes their base. The home becomes their world. Like one of the cases of this is, of course, Miss Havisham from Great Expectations. She and her home become one thing. The home becomes the world, and the world is stuck. Doesn't move with the rest of the timeline of the rest of the world. Just time passes by, of course, but there's a fixation there. There's an interior. There's a fixation in the interior space of the home. The garage door opens, and our hero or heroine goes in, and we see Robert Daly in the middle of creating. He's creating like some mountains, carefully, with care. You see the care in he's so amazing. This actor is just so good. The actor and the character just is an outlier even within that episode. There are so many more layers in him, portrayed in him, embodied in him. So he's in the middle of creating. He's unaware that the fact that he has a visitor goes on as a planet, and he's working with and everything is vintage in his garage, in his creating space. Vintage, floppy disks, some comic books, VHS tapes, and a lot of vintage objects. He is connected to that. His taste, his creative style, his aesthetic, creative sensibility is connected to some specific vintage shows and objects, and cultural artifacts, and they have shaped him. And they've shaped his identity. Anyway, so the music elevates. Like when the closer we get to Robert Daly, the more elevated the music gets. And I know Robert Daly, if you know the story, you know that this is the villain. He has turned evil, and he has a side to him that is unambiguously evil. It's not sadistic. He's not a sadistic person, but he is, because of his total lack of control, his total powerlessness in social situations, he has developed the opposite of that, a hunger for power, a hunger for controlling others and being able to control. And having other people joining him in the things that he cares about, because he never to be able to join other people's worlds and join other people in their interests, you need to practice that, and he hasn't practiced that. So the only thing that he can do when he gets total control over someone is he transports them completely into his world and then forces them to do a role play in his world. So that is thing. But of course, from other people's perspective, is total domination, and they think that he wants to imprison them. But setting all that aside, setting aside the evil side of him, the controlling, power-hungry side of him, just that home, the fact that he has a home, and that's his home, that he is there, he has lived there for 500. There's something about that I find incredibly moving and incredibly able to, effective in evoking compassion. I personally relate to that because I have a couple of family members who have that, not to that extreme point, but that loneliness about them. And that scene of arriving at the house and walking towards the door, it was perfect. It was so perfect, that the quietness of the outside, that mood of, that inside these walls, within those walls, there's life and there's loneliness. That was the big change, I think, in my perspective. The big change from the first part of the story to the second part. We really got that a compassion element with Robert Daly. We already had a lot. We already had seen him a lot. We had already had a lot of reasons to sympathize with him, to see his perspective, but it just took a whole new turn, a whole new layer. So yeah, I guess that's just my thing. What I want to talk about is how much I was moved by the episode, by just that one scene, the interaction between them goes on. And there's an innocence in Robert Daly too. When he clones other people, he basically secretly, illegally clones other people and transforms it into a copy of his video game universe, and then controls them and forces them to role play with him. And he tortures them if they don't do. But what he wants is basically like child game, and that his innocence is reflected in the fact that in that cloned an imaginary role play scenario, the clones didn't have sexual organs. They didn't have, both men and women didn't have any genitalia. So it's not that he's not a pervert in the usual sense of the term, but maybe he's pervert in a deeper sense, in a more psychoanalytic, technical sense. He might be a pervert, classified as a pervert. But yeah, there's a lot going on in there. If you have watched it, let me know what you think. And I'm definitely going to rewatch Black Mirror from the first season, because now you know what's going on, you know what it is about. You won't get that shock. You can set aside the shock factor and watch it more calmly. But if you want just this story, just search for USS Callister, and you'll see one of the episodes in season 4, as I said, the other in season 7.